So this week was a crazy time for the stock market, right? A lot of people saw the stock market crash, causing a lot of people to get nervous. And if you're someone that's new to investing, you probably prematurely took out your money. I'm guilty of that. I remember back in 2020 during the pandemic when I first started investing, and that first dip happened when the pandemic started. I took my money out, and then I put my money back in like a month after, and good thing for me. Luckily, market continued to go back up after it went down, and you still make some money. However, like if you're new to investing and you go through that first little market correction, you get a little nervous. So I'm sure for a lot of people this week, I'm sure a lot of people took out their money, especially if they're new to investing. But that's not even what I want to talk about. The thing that caught my eye the most is when you look at when the market corrects like that, when you see a crash like that, what I like to pay attention to are the headlines. And usually, like when you see like market, the market, increase by a lot or crash, I like to watch the headlines and see what people are talking about, what articles or news articles are talking about. And usually, if it goes up, they say, "Oh, it went up because Jerome Powell and the Feds are confident about what the market is going through," or maybe the market went down because of job reports, or for whatever reason, it's always going up. They always create a narrative for why the market went up or down. And not to say that these things are not true. However, it's so interesting to hear that. So Monday when the market crashed, right? The reason why they said it was crashing because the market is crashing because due to fears of a recession. So I'm like, okay, so all right, so what's going on? So everybody in the market just got the same information, and everyone's afraid of the recession. Like, what are the indicators, right? I know a lot of people have been talking about this SAHM rule, as SAHM. It's an indicator for how if we're going into a recession. So maybe they've read that report, and it's just like, okay, so everyone's afraid at the same time. Everyone's reading the same information and deciding, the recession is close. Let's start, exiting the market, which makes it crash the way it did. And then the next day the market goes back up, and I'm like, okay, so what happened? The recession is gone. Like no more fears. Like nobody's afraid of the recession anymore, right? And you start seeing the headlines for why it's going up, and it's just interesting to read these headlines for why the market is doing what it's doing. And it's just like, man, and when we all know, no one knows, right? Not to say that there aren't factors that cause the market to go up and down, but it's just so funny that when you read these articles and these headlines and they say why the market is going up, it's like, do you really know? Is that the real reason? Because the stock market is such a complicated thing, right? It does what it does. Like no one really understands it. I know a lot of people make predictions. These people try to time the market. People say that they know exactly when the crash is going to happen. In reality, no one really knows. Okay. And if you're someone that's new to investing, then these things, it's important to learn these things. And it's funny because like as I'm like learning more about money, learning more about investing, learning just money, understanding how money works, and then and for me, like I'm starting to understand, especially the books that I'm starting to read and educate myself on. It's like the stock market is not where you get rich. I know a lot of people like to do that, and I know a lot of people like to go into the stock market thinking that's where they're going to get rich, but that's not where people get rich, right? Now, let me explain why. And this is not to say that you shouldn't invest in the stock market. Like I believe that when it comes to the stock market, I believe the stock market is a great place to invest in if you're someone that's looking to retire, right? I think it's a great retirement tool, and especially if you're someone that the majority of your income is from a job. Okay, because you don't want to rely just on Social Security. You want to make sure you're putting your money into something so when it's time to retire, you can take out of that and live off for the rest of your life. Because obviously you're not going to be working in your 60s as you would in your 20s and 30s, right? So I think the stock market is a great retirement tool. And if you're someone, like I said, the majority of your income is a job, then you want to make sure you're investing in the 401ks, IRAs, all those retirement accounts to make sure that you're good for as you get older. But when I say that it's not there to get you rich, like a lot of wealthy people use the stock market as a way to preserve their wealth, right? So my plan is this, right? And based on things that I'm reading, what you're doing is obviously you make a lot of money. Let's say you use a business to create income for yourself, right? Because if you're looking at a business, if you have a job, then you're obviously your income is maxed out based on how much, let's say if you get a raise, a 3% raise the next year, you're kind of maxed out. There's only so much money you can make with a job unless you have a really high paying job, but most people don't. So you're kind of limited in how much money you can make. But with a business, you can multiply your income based on the systems that you create. And what people are doing is like you're making a lot of money and using the stock market, right? Using real estate, using high interest savings accounts, right? It's getting like 3, 4, 5% yield, or they're using treasury bonds, and they're putting their money into these assets that are generating more income for them. Right? So they don't use the stock market to get rich. They use the stock market to preserve the wealth that they do have. Right? And they, like they say, they use the real estate. They're going to put in the real estate. They're going to put into a high yield savings account, and whether it's 3, 4, or 5%, and they're going to generate income that way. And then you start thinking about that. It's like, okay, so that's what's going on. They're using obviously businesses to generate the income for them, because I think a business is the best way to create income for yourself. That's the best way that you can multiply your income as much depending on the type of systems you create. You can multiply it as much as you can, as much as you want, right? And you use these tools, like if you try to put in the stock market, you put into a high yield dividend account, right? And you put that money into that account, and you're going to generate income that way. But it only makes sense if you can put a lot of money into it. And if you're someone that's investing into obviously a stock that's going to pay you probably 3-4% dividend yield, you're not going to generate that much income. In order to generate more income, you're going to have to put a lot of money into it, right? And I'm talking about, if you're talking about like hundreds of thousands or millions. Right, like if you put $1 million into an investment vehicle that's generating 5% annually, that's what, from that million you're getting $50,000 a year without even touching the principal, right? And you see that's the way that's the way they're doing it, and it's such a that's the, as I'm reading and educating myself, that's my goal. Right, and not to say that I'm not investing in the stock market. I'm doing that as well. Like I usually do like a ETF, right, index fund or anything like that. I'll still put money in that. But my goal is not to get rich from the stock market, because like you said, when the stock market, it takes time. It's something that takes time. You have to let compound invest over time, and by the time you're in your 60s, that's when you can really like generate the income that you want. I don't want to wait that long, right? So businesses for me is the fastest way to create income for myself, and then I'll put it into these like asset tools with like real estate, stock market, high yield savings accounts, treasury bonds, where it can then generate income for me. Okay, and so it's just interesting to see the way the stock market operates, and then you look at all the headlines and stuff like that. So it's just funny when I was reading the articles that kind of like caught my eye, just the headlines that they were used to describe how the market is doing, and of course there's so much manipulation when it comes to these stock markets. There's a lot of manipulation, and for a lot of people they're trying to find ways to get rich in the stock market, whether it's doing day trading, trading options, investing, and there's so many different ways. But and it's just something that like caught my eye, and then it was just like, but as I'm learning, it's just like, when you really try to understand how the wealthy is really making money off of these, when it comes to putting their money in assets like real estate, stock markets, and businesses, it really like puts in perspective like how this whole thing works. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Interested to hear your thoughts. Make sure to leave a comment down below, hit the like button, share, and if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe. All right, so guys, take care. Have a good one. Later.